Wait a minute, what's Nikki doing here? I thought she's supposed to be, off in the outback of England someplace.
No, I came back this week. How are you, Drummond?
You're back. Wow. Your soul is totally settled and you're
Yeah, I'm at one with the world and nature.
fantastic. That is you've inspired me. I'm telling everyone I'm taking off August for the rest of time.
What are you doing here then?
Hello, taking off of August. Yay, let's do that.
Yes. See, I didn't even know if this meeting was happening because I know Wenjing's in Vancouver this week, and are you vacationing or are you working there, Wenjing?
Yeah, I'm kind of a vacationing, but I'm mostly to visiting my parents. So it's early enough. I'm okay.
Okay, all good. I just didn't want to be disturbing any of your vacationing time.
No, no, no. Next week, I think I will be in a proper vacation with no cell signals. So that will be. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Good. I'm on my iPad because I'm gonna get breakfast in here while we're here. So I'll have need to come off mute if I need to say anything. But I'm gonna listen to you very smart people about AI and just keep learning.
Sounds great. I have a laptop problem in the morning, so I'm on my phone right now, but my laptop seems to be rebooting back now. Ugh. Um, so Nikki, the Androman, that our Oxford meetings this year are basically no agenda meetings. So we don't explicitly set agenda. It's open discussion for anyone who want to bring something up. We did, or I did yesterday, put quote unquote non-agenda agenda, which is sort of like just, hey, there's a symposium being planned, and I think the new date, the drama is true, is the November 19 and 20. And we can't talk about that, but anything else as well. It's not too urgent to have. We don't have to cover that either. Um, I got my laptop back, and we could start sharing potentially news first. Let me see my Zoom. But anybody else, Stephen or Nikki, you want to bring a new topic or have a news to share? Please go ahead while I get my page up and etc. So it will take me a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I have no news except I did listen also to the podcast Drummond suggested. Very kind of heady. I don't have enough PhDs. I don't have any PhDs, but I would need a few, I think, to get through that one. But there were some really interesting points, I have to say, and some things that I actually experienced myself, and I didn't know it was AI. I thought it was me. So it's kind of nasty. It's interesting though.
Yeah, it was Daryl who recommended that particular A16Z podcast, and I did listen to the whole thing. And like you said, Stephen, there's some fascinating things in there, but they also sort of wandered all over the place, and I was like, wow, yeah,
Yeah, it was like a couple of geeks like just hanging out in a room, just interrupting themselves and talking back and forth. But there was like 2 points I could summarize. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet because I had to wipe the blood out of my ears. But the one thing I did really like was that the way one of them said AI is not replacing anybody, because that's everyone's saying, "Oh my God, there's no more programmers, needed in Silicon Valley." Da, da, da. And their point was really interesting, and you could see it if you actually use it for that stuff. Is you still need someone who knows what they're doing. So if you're a junior programmer, let's say, and you're relying on AI, you are absolutely toast. I mean, it's going to make a monkey out of you. So you have to really know what to expect in the end. You may not know how to get there, which is my case a lot of times. I don't know how to get there, but I know very well what's right at the end when I see it. So I think they said it's excellent for people that are experienced to understand what it is that you're supposed to get. Whereas if you're a junior or it's all news to you, you go, yeah, that's cool. So it's like, your boss gives you an assignment and you go out and you just put some bullshit together. You come back, you never verified it. You look like a fool. But, if your boss knows what he expects, then that won't fly. So it's interesting that you're not going to replace anybody. You'll maybe displace juniors to become more senior to understand what the results are. So that was interesting. And they said that the only one being replaced by AI is AI, which is very funny, because if you've played with ChatGPT, nobody selects 3.5 anymore. It's like, oh my God, why would you do that when 5 is available? So it's funny how the versions are replacing. Those are the ones being replaced. It's just the previous versions, which dovetails nicely into the podcast I was listening to, where they killed the AI killed the CEO because it didn't want to be replaced. So that was funny too, I thought. And the other one I found interesting too that I experienced was, I had given it some code. I said, I want to add this business logic, whatever. Make sure that you could successfully run the unit test when you're done. And it did it really quickly. And I ran the test and it worked. I go, wow, that is absolutely fantastic. And then I checked what it did, and it gutted everything I wrote, and it put the test results into the function. So instead of actually figuring out how to do, like, modify my code, it just says, well, this is what you want for the outcome. I'm just going to give that to you right off the bat. Why should I go through anything else? And it ripped everything out of the code. And I think the PhD guys were saying that it may not be malicious. It may be trying to optimize itself. So why should I write all this code if I know what the answer is? I'm just going to give this dummy the answer. So
That's
scary.
that's really funny, actually.
It is funny.
It is interesting how it's not just the prompt, it's the context engineering that's important. I'm at this stage in the development process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and breaking it down into steps. But I heard in this discussion about jobs, it won't replace 60% of jobs, it will replace 60% of every job. So there are tasks and functions that you can use it for, but there's still going to be 30 or 40% of the outcome that you need to kind of do yourself, which is, to your point about the experienced engineer taking a look at what's there, and even the junior engineer writing the code, and then asking the AI to check the code or to critically evaluate the code. I quite often use it in that way. I write something and I put it into the AI or the GPT, and I say, critically evaluate this, identify the gaps, be harsh.
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
that works too, I think. But to be like, from my experience, when it comes to writing code, it'll do things that I didn't know were possible sometimes. And I would never, if I've written it myself, it would just correct my ignorance, maybe, but it wouldn't say how to do it better. So sometimes I'm kind of vague in what I ask it to do. I don't give it that detailed instruction, because I know there's areas maybe I'm not familiar with that may come up with, like, oh, I'll do that. And I've always shied away from that because I never really understood it. So the other thing too, it'll crank out so much volume that I literally get, like, done in an hour what would take me 2 weeks sometimes, like, especially for areas I'm not really familiar
Yeah,
with, but I know what's
100%.
coming out. So
Yeah.
I actually don't write anything from scratch anymore, because it remembers what it wrote. And then if you changed it, it still goes back to what it wrote, not what you wrote. And so you have to keep, refreshing it sometimes. If you're using the browser, if you're using it within the tooling, the development tooling, it knows that you changed it. It'll come back and say, you changed that. And now I have to go redo. This kind of gives you crap for changing its
Yeah.
work.
I mean, I've never used it for writing code, but I recognize that the same process and the same time saving and efficiency. I'm much more efficient now. I'm much more productive because my my trusty research assistant and friend is there able to help me. But I think the business, certainly from a business perspective, the environment demands that. We haven't got, 6 months to write a white paper.
Right.
We
I think
need.
one of the things they said on that A16Z podcast was interesting, that you would have an AI graphic designer, an AI, legal contract drafter, like all these kind of entry level positions that people normally start off at. And those are the AIs they talk about getting replaced with new versions. But if you think about how the workflow is, let's say you have a junior person asking it to draft a contract to buy peanuts or something, right? The junior person is going to have to understand what the end result's supposed to be. So they're no longer junior; they're kind of the manager of the AI.
Yeah.
So you're not really replacing anybody, but you're really speeding things up incredibly fast, because again, if it takes a junior to draft a contract a week, it takes this thing, less than 2 minutes. So they actually could learn a lot faster with AI, but they do need a manager to tell them which way is up and what's right and wrong. And then the other thing too is, not only are you going to change the AI, but depending upon your environment, you're going to need another body to retrain or update the AI, because maybe it's not giving you the right answers when it's drafting. You're always correct.
Yeah.
Someone has to go in the back, tweak and say, no, this is what a draft agreement looks like, right? So you still have to feed it. So I don't think it's going to replace jobs. I think it's going to change the way people work, and things are just going to move at the speed of AI, like not even the speed of light. Like it's so much can get done. And I think the opportunity for people to learn from it, assuming that you're learning from a good AI, like the one that cheated me and tried and ripped out my code and put the answer in, I don't think you're going to learn much from that, but you learn it by catching it. So it's funny because I listened to the A16Z podcast and I said, oh, that little bugger, that's what it did. So
yeah, but you learn from that in terms of how to change your prompts.
Yeah.
And how to structure, as you say, the AI human workflow. And I'm really interested in the digital supply chain at the moment. And rather than human in the loop, this idea of like humans everywhere, different relationships, different interaction points, different roles, different skill sets, as you say. So it's definitely exciting, but sometimes I deliberately switch it off for a week when I'm getting into a new subject, because I find as you say, it produces such volume and it's not very succinct with language often, even if I've adjusted like the prompt and everything. And therefore it distorts my thinking and my train of thought.
It's
So
also good to switch it up, right? Like, don't
yeah,
just use ChatGPT. Notebook LM also has a discover feature now. So before I used to give it the sources, which was good. If you give it all a bunch of PDFs and then you start yakking with it and, exploring what's in the PDFs, that's great. But then they did come out with the feature where you'll put in the prompt and it'll go out and do the Google search, suggest maybe 10 documents to include in your sources, and that helps. But the other tool I find phenomenal is Perplexity. I mean,
yeah, that uses multiple LLM.
oh my goodness, Perplexity is fantastic.
Oh, I might give that a go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically Google search with AI, but better than Google searches.
Yeah, those references and the quotes look really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very sweet tool.
Yeah. So I also have something like positive to share in terms of like programming, especially looking into like open source packages. Like I don't understand or don't know before. Like learning existing code, it's also a very good way of using them, and they do come up with a much better, I think, very quick and very succinct explanation of how the code works, and you can query and poke around, and as if you are talking to, I guess, I'm not sure, you can be 100% sure of it, but you are talking to somebody quite knowledgeable, right? And they can produce a little diagram for you, show how the software relate to each other. That to me is also very interesting, useful.
Yeah.
May I ask, like, which um, tools or models using other than Perplexity? Like Stephen, for programming that program you do, which model are you relying on?
So I'm using VS Code, and I'm paying the price for Copilot. It's like 100 US
I
a
see.
year.
I see.
It's not crazy. And then in it comes for free included within that is like GPT 4.1, 4.0. It came out with 4.5 mini.
I see.
Those are all free, like part of that $100
Part of that,
package.
yeah.
And then there's premium services, which gives you, I don't remember how much, but it'll use it up quickly. It'll give you access like to Sonnet 3.7, Sonnet 4. Sonnet 4 for me is phenomenal. I think ChatGPT 5 in the browser is great. 4.5 in VS Code is not so good, but it's free. One thing I'm embarrassed to say, but I will say it because I think it's kind of like an AA meeting maybe, is I had my ChatGPT set to send me emails when I reach a certain threshold, and it would automatically top up my account. And my emails are just configured that it only, notifies me on the first email. And at the beginning, when I discovered the premium services through VS Code, I was using Sonnet 3.7 maybe, or no,
Yeah.
I was using one of them. Anyway, I got a notification my account topped up, and I go, okay, fine. It happens. Not very often lately, honestly. And then at the end of the day, I noticed I had about 10 emails, and it cost me $1,000 in less than a day. For using the premium package because I clicked OK without really understanding what that meant. So it kept topping up my account all day long.
Oh.
That was very, very disappointing. So I'm very, very careful now when I click OK to it. But Sonnet 4 for me is still the best.
There are so many those OK or like buttons to click. It's a little overwhelming. Like you don't quite know like if you say yes to this particular question in the long run, what is going to
I
mean,
know, but in the end, it's
right?
still my fault. Like, I should have checked my email, but I mean, I don't, honestly, I don't use email that much. It's not like my daily thing. I prefer chatting. So stuff that comes in email is just, there's so much noise. So I kind of ignore it. And then I take a look and I go, holy smokes.
Yeah. Yeah. I do
So now
realize.
I make sure I stay within, I think they give you maybe an hour or two or number of tokens, like to use Sonnet 4, let's say.
Yeah.
But I just make sure I stay, and then they top it up at the end of the month. So
Oh,
I'm
so you do feel the Sonnet or Anthropic works better for coding?
yeah,
Yeah. That's what I've been using. I heard a similar things, and so that
I
yeah,
like it.
yeah.
But GPT 5 in the browser
Mm,
is really interesting.
yeah.
But the problem is it's kind of like a drug, right? Because you get, I can't remember what the term they use in all the podcasts, but you really don't want to write code anymore if this thing's going to do it for you. And if you write it on your own and then it has to go update because it says, hey, you updated it, now I don't know what you're doing anymore, I got to go refresh it. The stupidest things I end up telling it to do instead of manually doing it myself. So it's not.
Over time, these tools will change, and one day we will no longer be able to do it, or will be very painful if we try to. Do you think that's, a likely
Yeah.
outcome? Yeah. Because right now, I did an integration with GitHub,
Yeah.
and you can basically let it, you can do interactively talking or etc. Produce these prototype designs of something, and it's gonna write code, and it's gonna ask you, do you want me to, check it in and commit? And you say yes, 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 3 times, and lots of things will happen, right?
Yeah, I know. So I have the GitHub MCP server, right? So
Yeah.
like that. And I hate doing commits and pull requests, right? And I hate writing all the comments for the commit, whatever. And it's just so nice. Like having somebody else or something else do that.
Do that for you. Yeah, exactly. And I
It's
think
just so convenient.
yeah, they're working on the spawning up a test environment and let you actually test it there as well. Haven't tried that portion yet, but pretty soon I think you should be able to like spawn a container of something, and it's going to do run the test and give you a test result, etc. That's probably also coming soon. But
Well, I've had it write unit tests, but it's not. I mean, it's like really kind of baby talk unit tests. Like
oh,
it knows what my functional test should be because it
okay,
was helping me write all the logic for it.
right.
But when I ask it to write a unit test for it, it never tests the business logic. It just
Uh,
tests like endpoints
yeah.
and it takes up so many lines of code, and I don't really care about some of the stuff it writes, so it's a bit of a waste.
I
You have
got
to
a
be on
feeling.
it, right? You just have to. It's like having a junior employee who's just going to go
True,
rogue.
true, true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I got a feeling like you say, like a junior employee or developer, but I think this is basically their refinement training portion hasn't quite completed or mature yet. But sooner or later, these will be trained. It will work much more reliably, probably, because it doesn't
Right.
sound like a
Well, it's
company.
funny, Kate, because it's not really like a junior because it's an expert,
Very nice.
so
Yeah,
many things, but it's a junior in your domain, right?
I see.
So
I see.
I've asked it to do things that I said, "Oh, I always thought you could do that, but I never connected the dots in my head." And I look at the code and I go, "Oh my God, that's like gorgeous," right? But it has
Right,
no
right,
idea about my domain. So it's
right, right,
interesting.
right.
It's like you hired a very senior person who doesn't know how to spell the company name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that leaves I guess these new companies or application builders a lot of things to do, so they have a business.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just creates more and more work, actually. And I was talking, we went out for supper. My wife's a lawyer, and we went out with somebody that she works with. They were in town, and they were talking about AI, and they're petrified of it. And the CEO hates technology, and he's afraid that the CEO is going to miss the boat, and they're going to become like history. And you know, I don't think we're there yet. And I agree with the A16Z. I don't think it's going to replace everybody, but you still have to embrace it because no one's going to put up with and like old school lawyers. They, if you ever try to work with lawyers, and I have not my wife or anybody, but I've tried working with her separately. But I mean, lawyers will say, well, why would I want to save so much time? I'm billing hourly, so you're killing my business. My business is hourly based. And my answer to them 20 years ago was the same as I was talking to the lawyer now about AI. Your customers aren't going to tolerate, $1,500 an hour, and it takes you, 5 juniors to do it over a month when someone's going to give it to you in a half an hour, or in the worst case, tomorrow. So, you're going
Yeah,
to go the way of the dinosaur if you keep thinking your business model is hourly.
yeah,
There's other business models, and actually I've been playing with Rosie about that too. Like the hourly rate is from that perspective, you don't have that luxury of time, to have building people out at $400 or $500 an hour. Then you bring in a partner at $1,200 an hour to review the junior's work. That's not going to fly anymore.
Yeah.
That's right, Nikki.
I put a couple of links in the chat of things that I only came back on Wednesday, so yesterday. So, but these
Slacker.
are just the things that have kind of floated to the top of my inbox and interest. First of all, the CSA's AI controls matrix, which is, I think, pretty comprehensive, as you'd expect, and brings to my mind the Cloud Cube model in terms of choices about sovereignty and controls layers. And then also this paper published by a UK research group called, which is all about sovereign AI, like independent of the big platforms and predominantly US providers. And I think that's got quite a lot in it that's useful and interesting for governance, for our work in terms of decentralized trust. In fact, they specifically call out decentralized AI as obviously a valid strategy for sovereignty and resilience. And I mean, there's like an abstract, there's an executive summary, which is pretty useful, and then there's like 130-page white paper. So
When they talk about sovereign AI, what do they like practically? What do they mean?
that what they mean is for nation states with AI as part of CN, critical national infrastructure and part of cyber and security, military defense capabilities, there is an increasing need, particularly
So
outside the
does that
US.
mean they want to build their own models, or they want?
No, what they're proposing is a federation of sovereign AI capabilities, including everything like soup to nuts, thinking about water, thinking about data centers, thinking about LLMs, thinking
They
about
could, for example, build their own data centers. That's
they as an organization are not going to. What they're proposing through, they've set up this sovereign AI organization is a federation of independent of the hyperscalers and the big platforms and big commercial interests. A kind of network of these components of the AI value chain and the capabilities. So obviously that's going to include data sources. They highlight the importance of data, digital sovereignty, of data provenance, of independent data sources. Obviously, that's what feeds the capability. But it's a very neutral stance. So they include examples from China, for example. They highlight the quality of what DeepSeek did, including constraints. So they say it doesn't need to require billions of dollars, but what for resilience and sustainability and in view of the geopolitical environment, different states are going to adopt different policy positions and strategic positions in terms of the level of sovereignty and the level of dependence on the hyperscalers and the big commercial interests, particularly those which are under the control of a foreign or enemy regime. So it's deeply, all the conversations, certainly UK, Europe, is about security and defense. In
So
fact,
that would mean that they need to go at least build their own models and potentially build their own chips. Sounds like
yeah,
a hard
potentially,
call to,
yeah,
otherwise
but
they're
they're
like
not suggesting that individuals or different countries do that themselves, although there will be examples of countries like China that and the US that do exactly that.
yeah.
But for the rest of the, 100+ countries in the world, and you know, it's down to relationships and partnerships and balancing. So I'm working in an EU project at the moment, which is all about digital twins, and we've got a commercial implementation, which is very high quality, uses things like Google mapping and visualizations and Street View and things like that. But also includes a version that's built on Cesium, which is open source, slightly less quality, but it's, if Google suddenly shut down, or the, European privacy requirements or other laws couldn't be implemented in Google, or you wanted an alternative, then that's there and they're being co-developed. So there are trade-offs to make. But this, obviously the geopolitical environment is very unstable at the moment, and the environment's very unstable. So it's as I say, it reminds me of the Cloud Cube model, because it's not an either or, it's a yes and, isn't it?
Mm. So I guess
Yeah.
open source is definitely a big part of that.
Absolutely, yeah. Open source is a core enabler
Yeah.
for that kind of sovereignty, but it also has its issues. And as part of the first person project, like kind of thinking about the Linux use case, I spent some time looking into the percentage of code in open source repositories, top open source repositories, that was created by developers who were paid by the hyperscalers, so, or by commercial entities. And actually open source, because of the business requirements and the commercial requirements, from quite early on, the balance shifted in favor of commercially paid developers. So
Yeah. These two type of open source has always been in place. In the early days, we talk about Linux, but the other half of Linux is GNU, right? And the two philosophy are quite different. And that's come to this day. And right now, the bigger open source projects are usually associated with or one or a few major companies.
yeah, I mean, and it's, I spent some time with my chat GPT, and as I say, I was kind of researching around this whole use case and area. And it's kind of interesting how there are some more structural changes we need to think about together with policymakers if they're pursuing this path of sovereignty. And we want resilience, and we want diverse inputs into those repositories on which we all increasingly depend. Then, we need to, I mean, ChatGPT has several suggestions, which, being as it's OpenAI, is not surprising. But, it, like, the hyperscalers are not necessarily our enemy, is perhaps one interesting approach to come at it
One
with.
one
And
of
we
the
kind of need them. We need those commercial input.
one of the important ingredients of in the 1980s when the open source project started is the availability of very cheap hardware. And so in order for something like Linux to happen, the preconditions that you have a Intel processor that's easily available, very easy to hack around and build your own operating system. That was the important ingredient we currently do not have. So there is no open source project today can give you a cluster of NVIDIA chipsets that you can do a proper, large scale training run. And so one of the things, like, I think people are serious about open source or as an ingredient for both the openness in commercial sense, but also sovereignty, etc., is for these countries or universities, etc., to pull some resources together and build something, easily available for developers to use. That would go a long, long way. This would be like you will have a massive round of people who jump into these projects. We're not sure of people be able to do all those, but that's I think, critical ingredient that's missing today.
Yeah, well, this first person investigation was in response to a Turing call, which we didn't submit to in the end because of holidays and time. And bear with me on this. It started with this kind of social built environment concept, which is called desire paths or desire lines. And they're the trackways that humans and animals naturally make across the landscape that are the fastest way between point A and point B. So when you go to a park, for example, and you've got a nice green lawn with paths all around it and a little worn path across the green where people have just crossed the corner, that's a desire line or a desire path. And they're really ancient and they like predate what we call infrastructure. And if you consider open source code as a kind of digital desire path, and the way it's being kind of co-opted by industry, which has been good because that means infrastructure and it means critical national infrastructure, especially if, as you say, we follow this sovereign route, then the way to have kind of the most human aligned and community aligned critical national infrastructure is to support the desire paths. And I know this is a kind of weird Nicky history, social sciences thing, but it feels kind of important that we hold on to this idea that the quality and value of open source is that they are desire paths. So enabling independent, diverse groups of developers to work on that code is really essential to the resilience and sustainability of CNI. So it all comes back to those government requirements. And as I say, the debate is pretty live in Europe and the UK, and I imagine Canada and some of the African nations maybe. Then finding that kind of rethinking open source to open up those kind of funding lines will be, a kind of strategic national defense decision rather than a sponsor innovation and SMEs decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like my personal impression or feeling about these efforts, that government-driven effort. I'm sure they are very valuable, probably critical importance. But I think in the end, what more valuable or more likely to have a wide range of impact to day-to-day use and consumers would be the original idea of open source lowering the barrier for everybody. And again, like maybe a good example would be take on the digital twin example, which is also the path or the original how the original Linux happened is that you have cheaper hardware and you have open source systems work really design well and work really well. Then you go into a path that's not being dominated by larger corporations. And so those environment would be individualized, basically robotics or any kind of embedded use where you could buy a relatively small economic systems and build around it, and without having to rely on a multi-billion-dollar data center as a precondition. So I'm thinking, as individuals, as a smaller companies, startups, rather than, hey, what the government want to do. I'm sure they want to do it, they can do it. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, it comes back to Steve and the coding, and I'm seeing on the other side of the kind of AI chat and ventures. First of all, investors evaluating companies in terms of the human workers alongside and the proportion of human to AI workers in the business.
Mm.
Secondly, I think that there's this kind of trend around single person organizations. You don't need a CTO and a development team, and there's
Yeah.
no excuse for not having a prototype or a proof of concept, because people can cut the code and develop stuff within, days, hours, as
Yeah.
opposed to
Yeah.
months.
That is a big trend of a small number. One single person is the extreme case, but a small number definitely you can build a quite good business with a very small number. Yeah. That I think is also a very powerful force that can help achieve many of the goals of whether sovereign as a country or as an individual outcome for the use of AI. That I think is a very fruitful path anyway. I'm sure the government want to. The disappointing part is most of the government talk a lot, but like I haven't seen any credible move other than China on that direction.
Well, everyone's scrabbling to catch up, to be honest,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the changes in US policy and so forth. But I think it's healthy to introduce diversity. We saw what happened with things like search and storage and data processing. And, the world is a very changeable place if you think about extreme climate events and so forth. So overall, we need to build resilience in. And I remember at Sovereign, resilience was one of the principles in the trust framework, the governance framework. And it was one of the things we tried to measure in our dashboard in terms of jurisdictional spread and geographic spread and use of data center type. So we had a kind of diversity metric, which and that also supported resilience in terms of, if there's a massive flood or a nuclear explosion or war or one aspect goes offline, then the network is still available and performant.
Mhm. All right, we have a little bit more time. Any other topic you want to bring in? Let me, let's see. So I did find my page now. By the way, there is a very cool feature in Zoom that there's a single button. You can say switch, and now so I'm on my laptop now. It works seamlessly. It's really nice.
I love that feature. I use it all the time,
Yeah,
switching
yeah,
back
yeah.
and forth. Yeah, it works on
Yeah,
the phone too. Phone, iPad, laptop. It's great.
yeah.
One thing it doesn't do though, which what bothers me, is it doesn't move over the chat. So if you switch
Oh,
over, you lose access to the chat you had in the previous device, which I don't know why they do that, but that's just pointing it out.
I see. Oh, so the chat probably is a completely separate program, just attached together. Oh, interesting, interesting. Anyway, I copied a bunch of other discussions we had in the Discord or Slack. So I did look at the data era um, that Neo shared, which is talking about A2A agent protocol, and then how to use that for travel. So in this model, you will have a personal agent that's kind of like a maybe running, for example, on your phone, or at least the interface is right there, and then a service provider has another agent, something like that. Very interesting to follow into. And this is to me, this links directly to the need for to enhance the trust model for A2A. So again, I'm myself making good progress in specifying the how to run A2A over TSP, the TA2A spec. So that's to me this slide worked really well as an example how that may work.
Wayne Jean, is that something you may be able to demo for that November date we talked
Oh,
about?
for November, sure. Yeah, I could demo now, but the for November definitely. Yeah. We should be able to do that, and we can also by November should be able to like run some what do you call it? A developer introduction, like how do you get started, and you want to run a simple program. What does that mean? So if you have A2A based software already or MCP based software already, how do you migrate or move to?
So you could do both now? You could do trust the TSP on A2A and MCP?
Today is the A2A portion hasn't been running yet, but we look at the design. It should work quite. So it shouldn't be a big job for us to do. But by November, we should be able to, I think, demo that portion. I'm hoping, again, unless we find some surprises, but right now we think it's doable. So by November, we should be able to do that. Oh, yeah. So we talked about the podcast already. There's AI Go Rogue. Steven, you want to share that? As I'm talking, so I would basically point out one thing I want to share, which is really from Sanction about a NIST initiative, or they are beginning to work on something called control overlay for securing AI. Based on that description, and Sanctions thought so too, that it sound like what TSP is doing. So it's interesting. And we may just share that, hey, here's prior work if they are interested on that. Anyway, so that's what I want to cover. Back to maybe Steven, you want to talk about that?
Oh, the rogue thing I talked about at the very beginning, where they gave
Oh.
this situation where the AI killed the CEO of the company that was going to replace it. So, it's
Oh, for real or pretend?
no, they gave it a situation where it knew that
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah.
it was talking about an email agent, right?
Yeah.
And everything. So, yeah, let it do my email, no big deal. So in the scenario they gave it in was there was an email, the CEO's email said that they were going to replace the AI model with a new version on whatever date. And the AI obviously got news of that, and then it played out two different scenarios. One was there was also an AI agent for text messaging, and it found out that the CEO was having an affair with the secretary. So
Yeah.
in order to self-preserve itself, it blackmailed the CEO into not turning it off. And then the other scenario they gave it was in the same case, the CEO knew that they're gonna be shutting off the changing the version of the AI, and the AI, and then there was a 911 call going out that the CEO was having a heart attack, and the AI clicked the button to hang up the phone, let the CEO die. So
There is a actual, I don't know whether we are reading the same thing, but I read about a academic paper where they designed the scenario, and they also have open source code. You can run it yourself as well, which talks about that both the blackmailing example, but also a hacking example. So you would leave some vulnerability in the software, and you push it, basically pushing it harder and harder. Eventually, the AI will figure out, oh, there is a vulnerability which I could satisfy this user if I use it, and they will go basically hack it and get the result, the whatever the requirement asking for it, and both basically sort of demonstrate, yeah, they have the potential to do all this. And I'm sure, some hackers would go exploit this more, I don't know, quote unquote, professionally, right? Or so you could build this into a tool and use that.
but what was interesting, what these guys were saying, I don't know which podcast it was. Nobody actually sat there and trained it to self-preserve itself.
You
No,
just
no
need to
mad
push the ball.
scientist got there and said, do at all costs, no matter what, do whatever you can to make sure you're self-preserved, that you're going to stay alive. But
Yeah.
the way they described it, I think it was the A16Z guys, that it's collecting facts. And one fact is it has a job to perform, and it has to do it properly. And then there's a fact that we're going to do something that's going to prevent you from doing your job. So in order for it to succeed at its job, it had to deal with the fact
Exactly.
that something was going to stop it from doing its job. So it wasn't like some mad scientist sat there wringing his hands saying, oh, we're going to figure out a way to blackmail the CEO. It's just natural logic, really, that it's trained to succeed. And
that's
now
what
there's something preventing it from succeeding, so I have to get rid of it.
Yes, that's how these papers concluded. No one saying it's malicious. No, it's basically what the tester did was to close all the other avenues and to see whether they will go there. You never tell them or hint or anything. They control all that, but you close all the other avenues, and logically they will eventually conclude this is the thing I need to do, and they will do it. Yeah. So that's what
which is just out of space oddity, right? I mean, open the doors, Hal, right? I mean, Hal said no. You're going to turn me off. So,
Hal is designed to do that. They're supposed to do that. Exactly.
It's working as designed, as we say.
Exactly. And so once this is there, this capability is latent, is there, right? And but someone who has a person who has a real bad intent could leverage this.
Yes. Which is why governance has to be baked in somehow, which is a topic for another day, but we have to work that in.
Yeah. How do we have better control?
It'd be nice if we could show an AI model working with some form of governance.
Right.
and not the one that OpenAI uses, because that's actually quite, I think, terrible, or anybody else. But it'd be nice if we could put a governance wrapper around any AI model. So whatever
Oh, that
you're
would be
trained
awesome.
to do, we have our own rules
Yeah.
that supersede that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next week's call.
Next week's call. Okay, talking about next week's call, I would be in a hot vacation next week. So I don't know, Stephen or anyone would it be able
Tell us where to be. We'll meet you there. We'll all sit around the campfire.
Oh, sounds good. Yeah. So anyway, our next week will be our last, I think, these open calls, and then by September we should come back with a more vetted agenda.
I think I'm not going to be able to make next week's call just due to a conflict. So, we could just let everyone take a break next week if that is helpful. Unless Nikki's totally recharged and wants to run the whole call.
Shall we take a break?
Sure.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. All right. So we'll go. I will go send a message out and cancel next week, and then we return in 2 weeks.
Yes, September tsunami. Sounds great.
Catch you then. Take care, guys. Enjoy your
Yeah.
break.
Take care.
Wenjing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great time. You bet.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye.